on the screen we've got a CakePHP application which just has an items table in the database, which we do create items and update them. If we have a look at the code in the items controller, we can see that in a number of places, if we have a search by this actual entity property, we can see that I'm repeating the exact same code to insert the primary key or the ID field of the currently logged in user. So that's duplication, and you would think if you say to yourself, well, okay, items table, go into the model class here, you might go into before save and then attempt to do something like this and apply a user ID, but you'd still have to pass this in from somewhere, you know, and it's still extra for you to do. But let's have a look at a plugin that solves this problem. If we go to GitHub, use Muffin and Footprint, and we can see that the plugin here, and it's named Footprint. This plugin allows you to pass the currently logged in user info to the model layer of a CakePHP application. And if you have a look at the icons, many of the contributors are from the CakePHP core development team, and it seems to be really easy to use. So what I'm going to do is start by installing it and following the bouncing ball. Now what it asks you to do, it says to, you can run this, and it says load the plugin. So once this is done, we can say, okay, load plugin. It modifies application src. Now and that's just added it. Now the documentation says that the Footprint plugin must be loaded before the authentication plugin. So it says, so move this above this. But when you go through the CakePHP CMS tutorial, and it says installing the authentication plugin, there is never a point here where it says, okay, add that into application to load the application plugin. It just doesn't seem to ever be mentioned. So, and it all appears to work without doing that. So to be explicit, I suppose, to follow this direction here, we would then have to add the authentication plugin. Now, the way I've been doing it is maybe putting it into a loop like this. So I'll add the authentication plugin, though it doesn't really matter. And then I'm just going to move this here to after that, so it's loaded after. And let's have a look. Yeah, so we've got it all loaded, but I'm just going to comment that out because I just don't think it matters for some reason. I don't, like, if I've never used it before and followed the tutorial. But anyway, let's see how we go as we continue. So we've added that. Then it says you need to add some middleware. So we can get into our application.php file, into the middleware method, and then it says you need to add it after the authentication middleware, because obviously it needs access to the authentication user created there. So we just pop that in there, and then here we have the magic happening. So it says go into your table classes and add this where you want things to be initialized in the initialize method, sorry. Now I'm going to copy this one because it's got the configuration array. So let's go into our items table and go up to our initialize method and go and find our other add behavior. Let's do that. And now we need to modify this so that we can have it do what we want to do. So now, just before we do that, we're going to have a look at the database table. So we've got, this is our Postgres admin. So we've got an items table and we've got a last modified by field and a last modified by username. So what we're going to do is this one here is the last modified by is an integer, so it's going to take an ID, and this one takes a string. So let's now work to populate these two fields. So we'll just do a view data all rows, and if we scroll across, we'll see one I've done earlier there, but we're going to populate these values here. So how do we do that? So next step is to say, okay, well, I need to specify that on a before save event, we're not using these fields so we can comment them out. On a before save event, I want to always update last modified by, and that will automatically put the user ID in there. However, we've also got this other one called last modified username, and let's say we always want to do that, and if we did want to only for new records, we'd put new in there. But this one is a bit different because it's not, we don't want it to put the user ID in there. What we want to do is put the username. So how do we fix this? Well, we have to understand the structure of the user object. So we're going here, if we have a look in our variables here, we can see that we've got this authentication object being passed through. So we've got the identity object here. Here's the data. So this is what we've got to choose from. We've got these fields from the users table that we could possibly insert. So we've got username here, and we want to put that into the items table to say, hey, the last modified by is linked to this user, but the username was this when it was done. So let's do that. So we go, okay, so we want to map last modified username is in the footprint object, and it's username. So we can see that we've now configured it to update our table. So whenever there's a before save event, always add the user ID to the last modified by field, and also using our property map, take the username and put that into last modified username. So are we there yet? Are we ready to make a change? Well, we can do an edit here and it would attempt to update, but before we do that, we might make sure that we remove our redundant code that just seems to get is repeated in a couple of different spaces because it's not needed. And now we can have a look at doing an edit and just saving it. Now let's see, it has, I forgot to make a note of, oh, it's DR8. Let's make another one. So let's I think that was the one that we've already done before. So, okay, F1. So if I go select all rows and then scroll across, we can see that we've now got that nicely updating. Now, let's have a look in at, so it's saying in the before save event we've got access to this footprint object. So let's have a look at that. So before save, go here. Let's dump and die, event, and I'm not sure if that will do it, but well, let's try it and go back to here and see what happens. Right, so that's the data. It's passing an entity, and here we have it. Right, so we've just gotten the data, which is there's the entity is being passed through and an array of options. And as you can see, this is the footprint object, and it's passing through the user entity, and you've got access to all these things. The underscore footprint object is what you can map things into your tables with. So that basically is the footprint plugin, and it enables you to make your code a little bit more dry by giving you access to that user entity from the model class.